up something to do with China and the WTO and the, most favored nation status, trade status, like permanent most favored nation that the Congress, including the Senate, voted on. And I found, like, in the congressional record, some speech. It was a bunch of speeches made by different senators, like, debating this issue because before China, like, trading status had to be voted on each year by Congress, and it was tied to their human rights record. And then the permanent most favored nation trading status thing that happened in like either 99 or 2000. The idea is that now they're going to be permanent. It's not tied to the human rights thing anymore. We don't have to vote on this every year. And Joe Biden had made a speech in favor of making it permanent and kind of brought up the human rights thing as oh, well, this is just like a straw man argument that, we shouldn't have to, like, we should keep, caring about human rights regardless of what happens with the trade situation.
Like, not only is that a stupid idea, but also like right at that time, which is like mid 1999, there was like this huge crackdown on Falun Gong, right? And so like the timing of that should have been obvious. And
no,
yet,
I mean, like, that's, right when we needed China to join the WTO and become part of like the prosperous, international, like, family of countries that totally follows international law and will never.
The anarchists and leftists who opposed China's entry into the WTO were right.
I remember there were big protests in, was it Seattle?
Yeah, they were all like, like progressive or left-leaning, like workers' rights, essentially. They didn't want to, like, they knew this would hurt U.S. workers, or that was what they believed. And, the U.S. government was like, oh, no, it's no big deal. It's going to be cheaper prices for consumers. And all the socialists were like, no, this is really bad for workers. And they were right.
Wow, things have really changed
They
in
really
20
have.
years.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, but Biden wasn't saying anything that, half the senators weren't saying, right?
Oh yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And I think Biden is like many politicians, his policies are aligned with the political climate at the time, rather than being right. Like someone like Bernie Sanders is like, he's got the same, like he's been on the same anti-bank train for like 40 years. Like he's never changed it, right? It's the same guy. Whereas Biden and many politicians who've been in office, like the political winds shift and they shift along with them. Things in the party, go from left to right or right to left or whatever, and the politicians just move with them. And I think Biden is largely one of those. So, look at him in terms of, he's been a lot tougher on China than the Obama administration was.
And when he was vice president.
When he was vice president.
Yeah.
But, and I applaud that. But also, it's a function to a large degree, I think, of the times, which is that things just shifted under Trump because Trump did change the direction. And then Biden is riding on that because it was clear that at least some of Trump's policies were definitely the right move.
Yeah, Biden's kept Trump's EV tariffs on Chinese. I mean, that's the reason we don't have
vehicles.
A bunch of Chinese electric vehicles in America.
Thank
that are
goodness for
currently
that.
flooding Europe, for example. I mean, I think also, towards the tail end of the Obama administration, like let's say in the last 2 years, it's like they realized that they were actually getting screwed.
The pivot to Asia thing?
The pivot to Asia thing. But not just that, like the investigations of like ZTE, like, and Huawei, like the ZTE thing definitely started under Obama, right?
Yeah.
So like there was already kind of this change going on, but like the Trump administration definitely saw it as a huge risk. And you have to give the Trump administration and I guess the end of the Obama administration credit for stopping that 5G technology in the U.S. because we're ripping out a bunch of cranes now for $20 billion. Imagine how costly it would be to rip out like all the 5G infrastructure that had been built in the last.
If this show was relying on Huawei, to get onto the internet,
yes.
What show?
Yeah. So I mean, imagine having to rip out all of that stuff because it was made in China.
Yeah.
And yet we are still. There are a lot of countries who are still installing that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, very much.
But it's cheaper, Shally. It saves money, and isn't that what really counts?
Well, I mean, I got to give the Biden administration credit for Have you heard how they're gonna fund this crane replacement thing?
Is it the Infrastructure Act that was already passed?
No. It's like it's a different model where like individual civilians can operate the cranes.
And you know what they call that program?
Don't steal it, Matt, you ass. I had it all set up. Why'd you have to do that? I've been sitting on this since the beginning of this conversation.
I'll let you deliver the punchline, Chris.
Well, yeah. So it's like this model. It's similar to the U-Haul model. They call it Ukraine. It would have been perfect. It was all about the timing, Matt. That's what it was about, timing.
And the addition of the U-Haul thing, I think, really does.
Yes, it would have been better.
Yes.
It would have been better.
It's what Shelley calls a punchline in search of a premise.
Oh yes, because
can we just get Anderson to cut this part out so I can deliver it and you guys can act surprised so at least the audience can enjoy?
No, I don't agree with that.
You were on the same wavelength with me earlier and it worked for good.
Yeah,
now it's for evil.
Yeah.
Evil, huh?
Yeah. So the U-Haul model called Ukraine. So good.
I haven't seen Chris that's fired up about something.
Yeah, because if I had kept my mouth shut and let you just deliver it, you know what would have happened? I would not have laughed because I had already thought of that.
Okay. I probably would have. I don't know. It's hard to say now.
It's actually, well, that would be impressive because it's very hard to get you to laugh at anyone's jokes.
Yes, I know.
You have a very high standard for jokes.
Yeah, but I'm currently sleep deprived, so.
Okay.
Would have been great. The whole setup at the beginning, like, I was trying to think of some pun that makes it Ukraine. And then I did. It would have been perfect. It would have been perfect.
And this is why you watch China Unscripted.
Thank you for watching. I'm Chris Chappell.
I'm Shelley Zhang.
And I'm Matt Ganesta.
I can't come up with another Ukraine pun this quick.
Send in your best Ukraine puns.
Send in your best, comment below, best Ukraine puns. Matt can't think of them all.